All right, we are doing Unit 4 assessment. Go ahead and look at your first story. The title is When Will My Turn Come? Paragraph 1. Please follow along. The inside of the town hall is sunny and light, with no need yet for gas lights. The brightness of its whitewashed walls is no match for my dark mood, though. This is the last stop on my long journey. As I stand on the stage, all I can think is that if no one steps forward here, I must go back to New York and my former life. I came here on an orphan train. The Children's Aid Society rescued me from the city streets where I have lived since Mrs. Hutchins decided to put me out 4 years ago. Mrs. Hutchins was our neighbor in happier times. She took me in after my parents both died. When I turned 10, she decided that I was old enough to take care of myself, so out I went. Sometimes I was able to make a little money opening carriage doors and carrying packages. Those were good days because I could buy food. I never earned enough for a bed, though. I slept in doorways and under bridges and stairways. It was rough and dangerous, but several boys in the same boat banded together for protection. We were not a gang, just kids watching out for one another. Paragraph 3. The society gave me food, clean clothing, and lodging while they checked my background. Satisfied that I had nowhere else to go, they sent me west on a train with 40 other orphans. At each stop, in churches and halls like this one, some have been chosen and left the group, but never me. Our society chaperones, Mr. Harris and Miss McKenna, have reminded the locals about the rules of the program. In adopting an orphan, they promise to feed, clothe, and educate us as if we were their own children. We will work, of course, as all farm children do. However, we are supposed to be treated as members of the family, not cheap labor. We have all heard the rumors about children being worked like mules on some farms. Now, paragraph 5, start it back over. Now, as the people survey us, sorry, I for a minute thought that the video wasn't on. Go back to paragraph 5. Now, as the people survey us, I wonder what qualities they are looking for. In some cases, it is obvious. They feel boys' muscles to be sure they can work. They ask girls if they can cook or if they've ever tended any infants. A girl I have come to know pulls her brother close and replies that she has cared for him since he was born. They turn out to be among the lucky ones. A family decides to take them both. I often wonder if the siblings who get split up ever find each other again. A middle-aged couple approaches me, a bit hesitantly, and I wonder, is it finally my turn? All right, I want you to go back and think about annotating. For the first question, you're going to have to identify 4 key events. I want you to go back through the text and think about what events would be most important for a summary. Press pause. I want you to go back and think about that before we read question number 1. Okay, so once you've done that, question number 1. Choose 4 sentences to summarize the events in this passage. Check the box beside each sentence you choose. We're thinking about the 4 key events from this list that move the story along, that without, the story wouldn't be able to progress. The first box, he saw a friend and her brother get adopted by the same family. A boy's parents died, and he became an orphan living on the streets. The Children's Aid Society rescued him and sent him west on an orphan train. Some local people inspected the orphans and asked them questions. Each time the train stopped, some of his fellow orphans were adopted. The Children's Aid Society checked his background. He wondered if a particular couple was thinking about adopting him. These are out of order, so that makes this extra tricky. So I told you to go back and reread and number your key events. Start with number 1 and look through these. Which one was the first thing that had to happen in order for this story to progress forward? Then think about what had to happen next. As you read through these options, find the second thing. Do that again for the third and do it again for the fourth. These are out of order, and that makes it tricky. Press pause, think about this, and when you are done, go ahead and we'll move on. Question number 2. How does the picture contribute to this passage? Go back and look at this picture. This is the picture we are talking about on the front of the train. How does this picture contribute or add to this passage? A, it shows where the narrator lived in the city before the Children's Aid Society saved him. B, it makes the reader feel happy for the narrator. C, it shows what an orphan train looked like. D, it makes the reader understand the value of the Children's Aid Society to the orphans. Number 3. Remember, you can always press pause. I don't know the speed you need me to go, so just press pause, go back as you need. Number 3, read this sentence from paragraph 2. It's right here in the box for you. You don't have to go back to the text. It was rough and dangerous, but several boys in the same boat banded together for protection. What does the phrase "in the same boat" mean in this sentence? This is figurative language. They're not literally in a boat. What does it mean, in the same boat? A, the boys were all orphans living on the street. B, the boys were traveling by boat. C, the boys were going to the same place. D, the boys were the same age. Press pause. Answer the question. Question 4. Use the dictionary entry to answer the question. This is the dictionary entry. The bold-faced word is the word. The rest are the definitions. Definition 1, definition 2, definition 3. The word is chaperone. 1, an older person who accompanies a group of young people on a trip or an event to ensure their safety and good behavior. 2, in the past, an older woman who accompanied a young, unmarried woman to social functions where it would not have been proper for her to appear alone. Verb, to act as a chaperone for. All right, so in this sentence, which definition is being used? Or what was their job? What is the role of Mr. Harris and Miss McKenna as chaperones of the orphan? Was their role as a chaperone, A, they find suitable local families to adopt the orphans? B, they provide the orphans with proper clothing? C, they make sure the girls did not go to the parties alone? Or D, they help keep the orphans safe during the trip? Five, in paragraph 4, what is meant by the phrase being worked like mules? Does it mean A, they were clothed and fed poorly? Does it mean B, they were housed with animals in the barn? Does it mean C, they were forced to work very hard? Or does it mean D, they were rewarded with mules for their hard work? All right, question number 6. We are not doing. You should have already crossed that out. Time for our next story. The title of our second story is Becoming Parents. Paragraph 1, finger to follow. Make sure you're with me. On a bright, sunny afternoon in 1880, dozens of farmers in wagons and townspeople on foot pressed their way toward the town hall. The throng included persons with serious business, as well as quite a number of curiosity seekers. Everybody in the crowd had seen the handbills announcing that a company of orphan children would soon be arriving by train. Those children were now here at the town hall, awaiting the families who hoped to adopt them. Ellie and Jim Lawson were among the serious ones. No sooner had they seen the handbills than they began preparing to take in an orphan. They had furnished a bedroom. They had met with the local committee charged with matching children to good homes. The Lawsons were well known for being kind, hardworking, honest people, and they had always wanted a child. They were quickly approved for placement of a child of any age. It now remained to be seen what child that would be. Ellie and Jim were discussing these matters quietly between themselves when a voice broke in like a rock through a window. "Getting yourselves a kid, eh?" Mr. Hamilton, who owned the next farm to theirs, continued. "Me too. I need another worker, and I figure an orphan's a sight cheaper than a hired hand." Ellie was horrified to hear such words spoken about a child. Jim, having also heard the remarks, resolved to let the community know. Paragraph 4, top of the next page. Inside at the front of the hall stood a dozen children, mostly teens, but also a few younger. Shockingly old, Jim thought. Ellie's eyes filled as she imagined what suffering their lives had already brought them, and now, need they be displayed on the stage like shop goods? She murmured to Jim. Slowly, families began to pick the children they wanted. Each choice was followed by a brief conference involving the committee, the Children's Aid Society workers, the prospective parents, and the child. Apparently, no orphan met Mr. Hamilton's standards. Ellie and Jim spotted him leaving alone. "Well, thank goodness for that," commented Jim. "Now, Ellie, what about us? Do you find our child up there?" Ellie had been gazing upon one boy near the end of the row. He looked to be about 14, though small for his age. She had seen him give a pat to a little boy as that child and an older girl, apparently his sister, went off with a family Ellie did not recognize. The expression on his face, a combination of deep longing and an absence of hope, tugged at her heart. She turned and said, "Yes, there he is, Jim. That's our boy." Question number 7. Part A. Which sentence best describes the narrator in this passage? Which sentence best describes the narrator, the person telling the story? A, the narrator is one of the orphans. B, The narrator is directly involved in the action of the story. C, the narrator tells the story in the first person. D, the narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of multiple characters. Part B. This connects back to Part A. Which two quotations from the passage support the answer you chose in Part A? Which two prove your answer in Part A? A. On a bright and sunny afternoon in 1880, dozens of farmers in wagons and townspeople on foot pressed their way toward the town hall. B. Those children were now here at the town hall, awaiting the families who hoped to adopt them. C. Jim, having also heard the remarks, resolved to let the committee know. D. They were quickly approved for placement of a child of any age. It now remained to be seen what child that would be. E. Ellie's eyes filled as she imagined what suffering their lives had already brought them, and now. 8. Top of the next page. Which word is an antonym for arriving in paragraph 1? A, departing. B, traveling. C, stopping. D, presenting. Go back to paragraph 1 of becoming parents. Look for the word arriving in paragraph 1. Listen to the sentence using the word arriving. Everybody in the crowd had seen the handbills announcing that a company of orphan children would soon be arriving by train. Now I have to pick which one is an antonym. I'm picking the word that is the opposite of arriving in that sentence. Departing, traveling, stopping, or presenting. Okay, question 9. I talked about this before class. It says, read the events listed on the table. Decide whether each event happened before the orphan train arrived or after. Check the correct box beside each event. You're going to have to go back and find where the orphan train arrived and what happened before and what happened after. You have to read for detail. Remember, it's not necessarily in order of the first thing I read, the second thing I read. You have to look for your signal words that tell us if it was before or after. All right, the first event. Dozens of farmers rode to the town hall. Did that happen before the orphan train arrived or after the orphan train arrived? Press pause, go back and find out. The next event. Mr. Hamilton looked for a child to adopt. Did that happen before or after? Ellie and Jim Lawson prepared a bedroom. Before or after the orphan train arrived? Parents confer with Children's Aid Society. Did that happen before or after? A brother and sister were adopted together. Did that happen before the orphan train arrived or after the orphan train arrived? The last one. The Lawsons met with the local committee. Did that happen before the orphan train arrived or after the orphan train arrived? Press pause, go back, do what you need to do. Moving on to question number 10. In paragraph 3, quote from the text, A voice broke in like a rock through a window. Suggests that the speaker encouraged people to behave violently. The voice was loud, unexpected, and unwelcomed. The listeners could hear the speaker through the window. The words that were spoken were hard to hear. Number 11, in paragraph 4, what does the word stage mean as it is used in this context? I need to go back to paragraph 4 in the story Becoming Parents. It's at the top, right up here. And I'm looking for the word stage. It's in the last sentence I see there. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to read that sentence. Ellie's eyes filled as she imagined what suffering their lives had already brought them. And now, need they be displayed on the stage like shop goods? She murmured to Jim. What does stage mean in that sentence? Go back to 11. Stage in that sentence means A raised platform in a theater or hall. B, a portion of a journey. C, a step or period in a process. Or D, a horse-drawn coach used in the 1800s. Mark your answer. Question 12. Question 12 is now talking about both of the stories we've read. Our first one was titled, When Will My Turn Come? And the second one is Becoming Parents. Which event takes place in both of these passages? Thinking about both. A, in both passages, a cruel farmer looks for a child to adopt. In both passages, B, a boy is sent to live on the streets. In both passages, C, an orphan boy stands on stage hoping to be adopted. Or D, in both stories, the Children's Aid Society feeds a young orphan boy. Mark your answer, press pause, take a break. We're going to move on to the grammar portion. The instructions say, read this paragraph. It will contain some mistakes in grammar and in punctuation, and some words are missing. Then answer the questions to revise and edit the passage. All right, I'm going to read this through one time. I'll say blank when the blank is there, and if it sounds weird, I'm just reading it as it looks with whatever errors are there. Each number there represents just each sentence, sentence 1, sentence 2. I'm not going to say each of those numbers. You can see them there. At the father's trading post, Maddie watches with interest as the new customer conducts his business. The man purchased large quantities of beans, cornmeal, potatoes, nails, and rope. The load of supplies he blank on his wagon is quite a sight. He is now asking about having an oar made for his flatboat to replace one that fell off his wagon and broke. Maddie envies these pioneers who are traveling farther down the Ohio River. So many pioneers did pass through town. What great adventures they will have. I'm going to read back through that one time. That first read was kind of totally different than our previous topic of orphan trains. And so I want to reread. We're still in the past. This is still historical fiction. I want to reread now that I kind of have an idea of what this is about. At her father's trading post, Maddie watches with interest as the new customer conducts his business. The man purchased large quantities of beans, cornmeal, potatoes, nails, and rope. The load of supplies he blank on his wagon is quite a sight. He is now asking about having an oar made for his flatboat to replace the one that fell off his wagon and broke. Maddie envies these pioneers who are traveling farther down the Ohio River. So many pioneers did pass through town. What great adventures they will have. 13. How should sentence 2 be punctuated? Go back and read sentence 2. Think about the punctuation, commas, periods, any marks in that sentence. The man purchased large quantities of beans, comma, cornmeal, comma, potatoes, comma, nails, comma, and, comma, rope. Which would be the correct way to punctuate that? A, the man has purchased large quantities of beans, comma, cornmeal, comma, potatoes, comma, nails, comma, and rope, period. B, the man has purchased large quantities, comma, of beans, comma, cornmeal, comma, potatoes, comma, nails and rope, period. C, the man has purchased large quantities of beans, cornmeal, potatoes, nails, comma, and rope. Or D, correct as is. No changes are needed. Press pause, go back, think about it. 14. Which word or words best fit in the blank in sentence 3? I'm going to reread sentence 3 each time, plugging in A, B, C, and D. Sentence 3. The load of supplies he will have piled on his wagon is quite a sight. B, the load of supplies he was piling on his wagon is quite a sight. C, the load of supplies he piled on his wagon is quite a sight. D, the load of supplies he will pile on his wagon is quite a sight. Mark the answer. Move on to the next question. How should sentence 4 be edited to correct a spelling mistake? Change or, O-A-R, to or, O-R-E. B, change replace, R-E-P-L-A-S-E, to replace R-E-P-L-A-C-E. Change fell to falled. Change broke to braked. Go back and take a look at sentence 4. I'm going to read it to you. He is now asking about having an oar made for his flatboat to replace one that fell off his wagon and broke. Which edit should be done in that sentence? 16. How should the underlined words in sentence 6 be written? I'm going to go back and reread. Instead of did pass, so many pioneers passing through town. So many pioneers was passing through town. So many pioneers are passing through town. So many pioneers have passed through town. Mark your answer. 17, your last question. Which would be the best phrase to add to the end of sentence 7 to support the writer's opinion? So you need to think about the person who wrote this and which would support their opinion. 7 says, what great adventures they will have, referring to the great adventures the pioneers are going to have. Should it be followed by, as they travel west to start a new life, for the next few weeks, and maybe after that, in their wagons pulled by horses and oxen, while I stay here in the same old town? Okay, that's it. Go back, check your answers, do what you need to do, and turn it into LA2 or 1, whichever class you're in.